and also Mrs. Horsey, our CFO, will be here with me to help answer questions, as well as our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Giska, and our Director of Student Services and Transportation, Mrs. Susan Whaley. We got feedback there. You guys good? Also, thanks for having this live stream on Facebook. Really appreciate it. First, I want to talk to you about the essential question: why do we need current expense referendum, and what's at stake? If you can see, sometimes in the background here, I have some faded out pictures. Those are from a 1985 yearbook, because that was the last time that we passed a current expense referendum or even went out for a current expense referendum. This young lady is a 1985 graduate and actually works in the middle school. Donald Ward, if you guys can see that, Donald Legowski back then. So it's kind of fun seeing some of these visions in here. School Funding 101, what are referendums? We'll get right into that real quickly. This whole thing is about 20 minutes. We'll go as quickly as possible, but I want to take time for your questions at the end. If you guys remember this gentleman, he's still substituting for us now at North Laurel Early Learning Academy. Girls basketball coach Chester Davis, quite some time ago. What are referendums? It's a community vote that lets local taxpayers decide whether to give a school district permission to raise additional funds. In Delaware, with few exceptions, schools cannot raise local taxes on their own. Only the community can approve it, with a few exceptions. We'll go over that. If you look at this, these are the components of a local tax rate. You've got current expense, debt service, match tax, and tuition. Remember when I said with few exceptions? The bottom two are the couple of exceptions: match tax and tuition tax. Sometimes a state will say, we'll pay for half a reading specialist if you get taxed for the other. If you collect tax on it, we'll give you the other half of it for a reading specialist. So we collect that. Then tuition tax, that is for students with disabilities. For example, students that we do not have all the services here to take care of properly. I had a daughter who went to Howard T. Ennis, so I'm very familiar with this. Howard T. Ennis would be an example of us not having the services here at Laurel or the consortium at Cape and Lopin, where that student would get better services that they need in everyday life. So those are the only two exceptions. The other two, all of the voters in Laurel School District have a chance to exact their voice. Current expense are funds to pay the bills with. Debt service is a fancy way of saying mortgage. In 2010, this community went out for a capital referendum. That's to build these new schools we're standing in. And we're very much appreciative for those. But the other type of referendum is a current expense referendum. And if you think about it this way, capital referendum is your mortgage, and current expense are your living costs, your monthly bills. What we're going out for today, or this presentation is about current expense, or our living costs. I want to show you just a little bit about our funding sources real quick. We generate $2.3 million in our tax revenue, $2.3 million. I want to make that clear because I know that there's been some concern about us taking the full 10%, and I tried to answer that as honestly as possible. With reassessment, we were allowed to take a one-time 10%, which for us was $230,000. We're in arrears, or not in arrears, but we have a deficit budget of about $500,000 every year. So 200,000 is less than half of that. So to be quite honest with you, that's why we took the full 10%, because 10% for us does not equate to the same 10% for Indian River, Seaford, Woodbridge, etc. We do have $4.5 million in the bank. That's the good news. So I really feel that Laurel School District has been exceptional stewards of their current expense. I mean, that's their living bills. That's the living wages that we have, our monthly bills. And we've not had to go back out and ask for one in 40 years. And also we have $4.5 million. So the job that the people who've stewarded long before Laura and I were here as well. We've been here for the last 13 years for me, the last few years for Laura. But there are people here that stood in that gap and made sure Laura was financially sound for a very long time. So kudos to them. What does current expense pay for? All these things, primarily staff salaries, the local portion. So let me clear that up. When people hear about a 7% raise for everyone except administrators, and administrators I'm talking about from vice principals all the way up to me, will not be receiving a 7%. Everyone else who receives a 7%, it's based on their local salary. I'm going to show you a chart in just a few minutes that talks about the local salary for Laurel for a bachelor's plus 30 degrees with 10 years experience is about $17,000. So that local raise is about $1,200, okay? So I want to share that with you in just a few moments. Safety and security also comes out of current expense. Transportation used to be 100% paid by the state transportation. 90% now? Mrs. Whaley, we pay 10%. There's rumors of that going up. Student services, athletics, field trips, arts programs, all these things. Technology, big one here, safety and security. Our 5 constables are paid out of this money. So I like to say things in threes when I can. It helps me remember them. Our main reasons for this are stabilization. We want to stabilize the deficit budget. We want to compensate all of our, not just our educators, but our custodial staff, our support staff, our secretaries, our school nutrition workers, our substitutes. We want to raise their compensation by 7%. And you'll see, even though I understand many of our Laurel citizens don't get raises, I get that. I do. But you'll see it's vastly needed here. And operations, that's what we're talking about, technology, and also, most importantly, school safety with our safety and security officers, our constables. So stabilization, compensation, and operations. Why do we need a current expense referendum and what's at stake? Reason number one, and there's 3 reasons. Stabilization of the $500,000 deficit budget, which I've already talked about. And what causes this? Well, rising student population causes this. Let me explain here in just a minute. Since 2013, certainly not since 1985, but since 2013, student population has gone up 19% here at Laurel. We were the fastest growing school district right there. I don't know if you can see my red highlight there, but we were the fastest growing school district in the state per capita, higher than Appoquinimink in 2019, right before the pandemic. And then we dropped, and now we're trying to level back off. But still, we've gone up 19% in our student population. What does that mean? Delaware uses a unit count system to fund schools, by and large. Just say about every 20 students, every school earns a teaching unit. Just say on average, every 20 students, a school district or a school earns 1 teaching unit. Something happens when you get more kids. You've got to have someone to teach them and a place to put them. Laurel citizens took care of a place to put them 12, 13 years ago when they passed this referendum for these buildings. We still have to have people to teach them. Here's the bad part about that. Everybody says, well, you get the state money for that teacher. Yeah, we do. We get 70% of that money. 30% is local. That's where our current expense comes from. Current expense. So every time we go up 20 students, we earn a new teacher. For us to bring that teacher here and employ them to help with class size, to help with instruction, we've got 30% built for that salary. I hope that makes sense. So every time we grow in population, we earn a teacher. That is true. We earn other staff members, but there's a local cost of those additions. Since 2013, you'll see here, our increased student population is 19%. Our increased staff is about 17%. And then our revenue is about 21%. I'm going to come back to that red circle, 45% in just a moment. 19, 17, 21, very commensurate. Increased population, increased staff, increased revenue. You might be asking, how did we get increased revenue if we never went out for current expense? Because there's still businesses that came to Laurel in the last 13 years that paid impact fees, et cetera, that the tax base went up. So it's going up 400,000 in, 12 years. Let's talk about that 45%. Why has that so out of whack? It's really simple, because yesterday's dollars don't buy today's teachers or staff members. It just doesn't. Inflation has gone up 200% since 1985. If a loaf of bread costs $1, it costs $3 now. I know you guys are all very much aware of that. Here's something just to put it in perspective. The same staff we had in 2013 would cost us 25% more funding today to employ those same very people because of inflation. And each new hire adds local payroll. Number 2, mandated and specialized staff. This is another reason why we're having trouble stabilizing the budget, because we have ESL students who've come to Laurel, and we love those students very much so. We have students with disabilities who are in Laurel, but I would not be telling truths if I sat here and said it doesn't cost more money and more services to educate those students. And I think any of our ML teachers or our special ed teachers or our special services providers would attest to that. These are legally mandated. They're not optional. We have to do it, and we want to do it. It's the right thing to do, but it does come with a higher price tag. If you look at this, this is just our students with disabilities, our special ed students. They've gone up 26% since 2013-14. Not since 1985, since 2013-14. 26%. We started with 297, now we're up to 436. Here's a big kicker. Our multi-language learners, our multilingual learners, our EL students, they used to be called ELL, whatever, ESL, they've been called all that. They're up 224%. 2013, 7% of our students were ML. Today, 23% are, an increase of 224%. We used to have 155, now we've got 575. Again, more needs, more money, more costs associated with those students. We love them, we want to do right by them, but there is more money that comes with educating them. The third reason is a rising cost of benefits. Laura, can you talk about this just for a moment?
Sure. So we have, of course, throughout any company, any organization, health insurance premiums keep rising. That goes through our accounts the same as anyone else. The state does cover some of those costs. A lot of times, you know, if we have someone being paid through a grant or some other state funds, with the health insurance coming out of that funding as well, like it depletes the funds quicker, and then we have to rely on the local costs to help pay for those benefits. The benefit rate has gone up 3.6% from 2013. It's now 33.39%.
So we do cover a great deal of the local health care and retirement costs. So again, it's not just salaries that are going up, it's benefits that are going up as well. Here's reason number two, compensation, the cost of teacher competition. When I say teacher compensation, I use teacher compensation because those are who our students and our parents most readily most readily identify with, right? But it could be anything up there. It could be custodial staff, the cost of custodial competition, the cost of secretarial competition, the cost of school nutrition competition. It could be interchangeable. And I'm going to show you why. Why does local pay matter? Because if we don't invest in our teachers, someone else will. There's a teacher shortage. We're doing a lot better than we were in 2023-24. A heck of a lot better. We really are. We only have 2 open positions in the whole staff right now. And God willing, we're going to finish on a great note, and that'd be 2 successful school years back to back after coming out of 23-24. And we're just so very happy about that. But one thing's for sure, if we don't retain them, they're going to go somewhere else, obviously. I know that's kind of an obvious statement I just made. But we've got to do everything in our power to retain them, because hiring or going out and hiring new staff costs much more than retaining the ones that we currently have. In 2023-24 school year, we had the lowest average pay in surrounding Delaware school districts. We also had the highest number of vacancies. We had 25% of the total vacancies in Sussex County. And if you look at this graphic, across the nation in 23-24, not quite 500,000, but 365,000 vacancies. That didn't mean that teachers were not, that didn't mean that a person was not in that classroom. It means a certified, highly qualified, certified teacher was not in that classroom. Somebody was there, but in classrooms across America, there was 365,000 classrooms that happened in. There's 432 of those classrooms in Delaware in 2023-24, 80 in Sussex County, and we had the bulk of Sussex County. We had 20 vacancies across our school district, majority of those in secondary, middle school and high school. Here is a chart that shows the cost of teacher competition. Color black, B for bachelor's, red is for master's. And I want you to look at this and also look at this chart as we go along. There is a such thing as a salary schedule. No matter what position we have, there's a salary schedule on our website, and there's an enormous amount of cells, right? Bachelor's plus no years experience, all the way up to doctors plus 16 years experience. So you can imagine all the different cells that an individual candidate might land on, all right? I just took these 2 because usually when you have 10 years experience, you're going to stay in the field, you're going to stay in the profession, and you generally have bachelor's plus 30 at that time or a master's plus 30 at that time. So if you look at this, this is all local pay. That's not what a teacher makes at Laurel. That's what a teacher's local salary is from Laurel after 10 years with a bachelor's plus 30, after 10 years with a master's plus 30. Reason why I didn't put the total salary in here, because I wanted you guys to see the difference. I wanted you guys to see it. Because the state pays the same for a chemistry teacher at high school level at Cape and Lopin as they do for a chemistry teacher at high school level in Laurel, or a pre-K teacher for that matter. It's the same amount of money. The difference in teacher salary across every school district is the local money. So if you look at Laurel, these are the 8 Sussex County school districts. We are 8 out of 8 in bachelor's plus 30 after 10 years. And we are 8 out of 8 with a master's plus 30 after 10 years. And I just want to give you a better visual. If I am a teacher, a custodian, a director, a principal, a secretary in Laurel, all I've got to do is look around me. Even Delmar pays more for a bachelor's, $700 plus more for a bachelor's, $4,000 more for a master's. Let's go north, $2,000 more for a bachelor's in Seaford, $4,000 more dollars for a master's. We'll keep going north, Bridgeville, $3,000 more for a bachelor's, $6,000 more for a master's. We go a little east, Sussex Tech, $9,000 more dollars for a bachelor's and $15,000 more dollars for a master's. I know I have teachers up here, but that salary differential is the same across all of our positions, all of them, from secretary up to superintendent. Cost, why number 3, operations, the cost of operation. We got 2 big ones. Student technology. When COVID happened, we had to scramble and get laptops. We did what we could at that point, and then the federal government gave us money to buy laptops so students could learn from home, asynchronous learning. We also use them a lot now in the classrooms, to enhance our lessons. The ESSER money is now gone after 5 years. It's all depleted, and there's no more coming back. So if we want to keep our one-to-one program, which is what we call it when we give our kids a Chromebook across all the age levels, that's going to come with a significant price tag. Maybe the community doesn't want the students to have technology. I don't know. I'm telling you that it's a great enhancement to learning instruction. It's not something to be relying on all the time. Absolutely not. But it's a great enhancement. Here's the big reason for operations. It's safety and security. Mrs. Whaley, we've referred to before, she also oversees student services. She oversees our constable program and our SRO. And those people get paid primarily out of a Stronger Connections grant that Mrs. Whaley applies for every year. That Stronger Connections grant is now no longer around. It's defunct. It's expired. We're no longer eligible for it, nor do they have it anymore. 2 of our 5 constables get paid exclusively out of Stronger Connections grant. We got several of them here now for this meeting and the basketball game going on, and for little wrestlers. That's all extra pay for extra responsibility that comes out of the Stronger Connections grant. I don't know what we're going to do, because I can tell you that despite some of the things that we've seen on social media with that one student, and I know everybody knows what I'm talking about, it's really been a sea change in our hallways. And it has across all of our schools with our constables. Our principals and assistant principals are talking about it today. I've talked to the teachers about it. We all feel this way. We need our constables. We need our SRO. We won't be able to afford it anymore. Why now? Because 2 generations have passed. Again, this is the 85 yearbook. Got some familiar faces in there. 40 years have passed. Generally, a generation is considered 20 years. 2 of them, two whole generations have passed since we last had an current expense referendum. Why now? And I just wanted everyone to see this part of it, because I think this is very telling. These are the 8 Sussex County school districts again. And this is how many times they've been out for a current expense referendum since 2000. Laurel has been out 0 times since 2000. So we miss 100% of the chances we do not take. So we've been out 0 times in 25 years. And we all know 0 times in 40 years. I'll come back to you at the end. Delmar has passed 2 since 2000. They've gone out for 2 and they've passed 2. Seaford has gone out 4 times and have passed 3, once every 6.25 years. Sussex Tech, surprisingly, amazingly, has never gone out, but have passed 9 since 2000. Because the way they're funded is they just have to have legislators advocate on their behalf for increases or a new school or a current expense raise. And as long as there's more legislators that are for it than against it, it passes. So there's been 9 increases for Sussex Tech since 2000, and 1 every 2.7 years. Woodbridge, mostly modeled after us. Same number of students, we're about 2,600, they're about 2,600. They've gone out 7 times since 2000 and passed 3 of them, or once every 3.5 years. And they've got a 43% success rate. Milford, 4 out of 2, 2 out of 4, excuse me. Indian River, 4 out of 11. Cape and Lopin, 4 out of 6. Why is this important? Because that quote I have up there, deferred costs don't disappear. They inflate, they do. If we kick this can down the road, and remember, I started this off with saying, we got $4.5 million in the bank. And my job is not to come in here and try to persuade people who don't want to vote. My job is to inform you. And I want to inform everybody. And everybody watching, I want to inform. I think anybody will agree. A trade-off of short-term gain usually ends up with long-term pain. So if we kick this can down the road, believe me, there's going to be an impact felt. And it's going to be felt when teachers, when secretaries, when custodians, when they realize, and you guys remember that map I showed you, when they can go somewhere else and make 6, 7, 8,000, 15,000 more dollars a year, they're going to leave. It's going to be an exodus from Laurel High School, Laurel Middle School, Laurel Elementary, Laurel Intermediate, North Laurel Learning Academy. And I know there's this kind of conflict we have. I've got personal responsibility, and I got public responsibility. And I'm sorry that the state's funding system is set up that each of you have a public responsibility. Now, if your personal responsibility outweighs your public responsibility, then don't vote. Don't vote for it. Vote no. But if more of you can afford the public responsibility part of this than you can the personal responsibility, then please come out and consider voting for it. Why now? Because there is a 0-day happening. This is what we have basically in the bank, 4.1. I think we should have like 4.5 when this thing started in 2025. But that is the projected decline every year with payroll and inflation. So after this 2029 school year, that's 28-29, for the 2029-2030, we will be insolvent. And when school districts get close to being insolvent, the state comes in and they're going to take over. At least that's what they used to do. When I first got here, priority school was happening at Laurel Middle School. They invested money. We got it turned around. I don't know what the operation will do now. I know that we're going to be insolvent in 2029-30 if things don't change. That's why I'm begging you. Even though we have $4 million or so in savings, we cannot kick this can down the road. Again, let's go, short-term pain, long-term gain. I promise you, it's not going to be 40 years before we go out again, and I won't be here, but it's probably going to be 7 to 10 years we'll go out again if we can pass this one. And it won't be for 7.5 cents. It'd be for 1 cent. It'd be for 2 cents. Because that's what I mean. It doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. It just compounds. So how are we going to do this? How much are we asking for? This is what they once called a penny, no longer in existence, but just to give you guys some relevance here, 1 penny in Laurel now at the current tax rate, which is 10.5 cents, gets us $220,669. You can see what 1 penny gets everybody else. Seaford, $345,000, Milford, $361,000, Cape, $3.8 million, Indian River, $4.0, Sussex Tech, $9 million. Our total tax revenue is $2.3 million. Sussex Tech is $13 million. Indian Rivers is $51 million. Now, I understand those places are property-rich districts, so we can't really compare ourselves in, even though they're in the same county. But we certainly should be able to compare ourselves to a school that's 5 miles down the road on Route 9. We ought to be able to do that. But how do you compare? You're like, well, we get $2.3 million in tax revenue. They get $13 million in tax revenue. The first thing people are going to say, yeah, but look, you're at 10.5 cents. They're only at a penny. That makes perfect sense until you divide it by the school population. If you look at ours, Laurel, we've got 2,499 students. Sussex Tech has 1,349. Divide our revenue by those number of students, and you see this. Sussex Tech's at $9,781 per student. We're at $2,191 per student. We don't have an enemy problem with Sussex Tech or anybody else in Sussex County. What we have is an equity problem. And I'm so sorry that it falls on the citizens of Laurel to correct it. So here's what we're asking for, and here are referendum priorities. We're asking for stabilization of the budget, and you'll notice that these go up every year for 5 years, because this is the final amount we're going out for, a total of $1.6 million. Some people might say, why don't you just go out for $1.4 million and just do it for 2 years? Because if we do that, we're going to be right back out in another couple of years asking for another current expense. The state wants us to project over 5 years, and that's what we've done here. But again, if we only did it for 2 years, we'd be right back out asking for another. It wouldn't be 7 to 10 years at 1 cent or 2 cents. It'd be another 2 years at 5 cents again, or 3 cents. So we're asking for stabilization of the budget, and that's how much it would cost. Again, we're in a $500,000 deficit per year. We want a 7% compensation. That should not say all staff. That's all staff that's not administrators, and that's how much that would tally. And in operations, student technology, 100, 189. We need about 200,000 in student technology, and we need about 200,000 in safety and security so we can maintain our constables and our SRO for a total of $1.6 million for an increase of 7.42 cents. Now, the average house in Laurel is this one right here now. The average of assessed value after reassessment is $230,527. It's going to cost the average taxpayer in Laurel, the average homeowner, about $171 more annually, or $14.25 per month, or 47 cents per day. You guys can read, we've got a lesser valued house and a higher valued house. And if you want to see what your assessment would be with the 7.42 cents increase, you can scan that QR code and it will tell you. I will also say, if you're 65 or older, there is senior tax credit, pretty much eliminates half of that increase. And there's also farm tax credit. And I'm not sure at this moment how much the farm tax credit helps out, but I know the senior tax credit helps out about 50%. It's not just me saying these things. This is a report done by AIR, or AIR. If you read that, the American Institutes for Research released an assessment of Delaware's funded schools. I've blown it up over here, but here it is. You can see it. Laurel, circled there in red. This report, which is a national report on Delaware's funding system, says that Laurel students are underfunded by about 71% to 91%. Even Sussex Tech, they say, is underfunded at 7%. But that's a far cry from 71% to 91%. So again, this is not me standing up here saying it. I'm not the only one. These are research, educational policy experts that have done a deep dive into everybody's funding. And we're 71% to 91% behind with our students' funding. You can look at some of the other. So how do I vote on February 9th from 7 to 8 p.m., 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.? We've got 3 locations: Laurel Elementary School, Laurel Intermediate School, North Laurel Early Learning Academy, and Laurel Fire Department. Again, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You need to bring a proof of ID and proof of residency. You do not need to be a registered voter. You just need to be a Laurel resident 18 years of older. You do not have to be a property owner. And renters, and I'm just going to speak the truth and love here, renters do have skin in the game because they risk what? They risk their rent being increased by the property owner of that house. So they do have skin in the game. You see that a lot. Well, renters don't have to pay. No, that's not true. That's not true. Absentee ballots requests are available on the website. What happens if it passes? Thank you very much if it passes. We'll stabilize the budget for a great number of years. We've secured funding to boost compensation. And we've invested in student technology and safety and security. It goes uninterrupted. And we definitely need that. I don't think I have to convince any of you of that. If it fails, we're going to have to explore budget cuts. We're going to have to do staff layoffs. We're going to have to get rid of some extracurriculars. We're going to risk further teacher vacancy. We cannot afford to lose the staff that we earn now. It's going to be loss of student technology and, most importantly, loss of student safety. So again, Why do we need a current expense referendum and what's at stake? We need one for stabilization. We need one for compensation. We need one for operations, primarily safety and security. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'll answer any questions that you have as well as I can. And I just appreciate everyone's attentiveness and coming here tonight and trying to be informed. Thank you. Questions? I think Ms. Reed has a question.
1 second, Miss Reed. Just because we're streaming this, you'll have to speak into the microphone. That way you can be heard on there. And I know you don't love it, but sorry about that.
I have several questions. Um, let's start from the beginning. You said there was no expense referendum since for 25 years.
40
And,
years, actually.
well, expense referendum,
Yes.
not construction referendum.
Right. Yep.
Okay. In 2023, our portion of school tax went up. And I just happened to get the bill in the mail the day of the school board meeting. And I'm like, I know I didn't miss a referendum. And I went to the school board meeting and asked, kind of felt like I got a big runaround, but anyhow, they said it was for expenses and it didn't have to go through a referendum, but it raised it like 0.5%. It's like,
It was probably those two things that I talked about earlier. It was either a match tax or a tuition tax. It was tuition tax that year. Yeah.
pardon?
It was probably one of those two things that I talked about earlier in the presentation, the two things that are the exceptions, tuition tax or match tax. And Laura just confirmed it was tuition tax that year, which is the students with disabilities who need to be educated somewhere that we cannot supply for.
So you can raise taxes
Yeah, and
without
yes.
a referendum.
Yes, and I've been transparent about that in the presentation.
Okay. Well, when the schools were built, started building, and you know, the property taxes went way up for the new schools, and we were told that, once the schools were completed and the bonds were paid off and all that, the property tax rate or the school tax rate would come down close to what it was originally. Well, it did not come down. I mean, it came down a little bit, but it did not come down
Yeah,
anywhere
Laura's
near.
going to take that. I know that I did post on social media, our Facebook page and our website. I posted that because somebody else had that question, and I did show where it had come down every year, and I even put in when the bonds are expected to be paid off. But Laura,
Yeah, so if you look just at the debt service tax rate in our total tax, you remember our total tax is comprised of 4 different sections. So our debt service tax rate goes down a little bit each year as we pay principal and interest on those bonds. We have 20-year bonds, so they still have like another 10 years left. So they'll be fully maturing in like the year 2031, 2032, 2033. So those will be when those bonds are completely paid off, when the tax rate will for debt service would be down to basically 0 because we won't have any mortgage debt at that time. So each year it has been going down about I think it was like 2 cents each year. And now with the reassessment, it's been different. Was it 7 cents? I think.
I
or
don't
17 cents.
recall it. It's been,
But the tax rate for the debt service line goes down each year. It has been.
By a little bit. But, so when the schools were built, we were told that I do know that the high school and middle school was built for 1,400 students. Was the elementary built? I think it was either built for 1,400 or 1,300.
I believe it's 1,200.
yeah, it's 1,200.
1,200. So are we at max capacity in both schools? And we were also told that North Laurel Elementary School was uninhabitable, that it was going to have to be torn down and, demolished and all that. But And I know that you put money into
Yeah.
refurbishing it and stuff, but you know, it just, so is that just pre-kindergarten?
So, and I'll let Laura, we'll play double dutch, just jump in there. So the first question was about capacity. We are nearing capacity, but we're trying to make do. We moved first grade from LES this past year to Nalela, to North Laurel. We call it Nalela, Nlela. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Let me come closer. So we did have capacity issues at LES. They were at LEIS now. They were at capacity. So we moved first grade over to North Laurel because we did have some hallways that needed some renovation to come up to code and expectations for modern day learning. But Daryl Downs and his crew, our supervisor of facilities, took care of all that. So we are having some capacity issues, but as you can see, the population is kind of leveling off. So I'm really confident that we can get through that for the foreseeable future. Especially the state's not giving any CNs out anyway. Certificate of necessity. We qualify, if we qualify for a CN, the state gave us one, they would pay 80% of those school building bills if we were to ever build a new one or refurbish a 21 building. And we have applied, but they're not giving out any new CNs. But right now, we did not get a CN. So what we did, we made do. We moved first grade over to Nalela. We refurbished some things at a much lower cost than getting a new school, obviously. And the second question was, about Nalela being uninhabitable. Was that what you said?
About what?
What was your second question? The first one was about capacity.
Well, about how many students are in the elementary school, the other school
Yep.
across the street, the elementary.
LEIS. Well, it was 1,200. We moved over 1,200. We moved first grade over, which was about what, 170? 100? Yeah.
About 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still room for 200 more students out there, correct?
Well, yeah, we have, as you saw, the students with disabilities number has gone up. ML numbers have gone up. They need teachers. They need specialists who need private spaces to work with those students. So even though it'll hold 1,200, it's doubtful that 1,200 students will ever be able to get in there because we also have, offices that are needed to be occupied by people who do private services. I'm just saying, you can't say, oh, so they got room for 200. No, they might have room for another 100, another 150, but certainly not 200.
Take up more spaces.
For the groups of students who need those intense interventions and supports over well, and that's what Sean said is federally mandated that those students receive those services. We have to bring that in.
So if they are federally mandated, Joan, aren't we eligible to get more help from the state than?
Yeah.
I mean, have we
Um,
explored all of those options?
Ms. Reed, I appreciate your direct questions because they are very good. But I will tell you this, we get a lot of unfunded mandates, both from the state and from the federal government. So a lot of our mandates are not funded the way they should be. That's why Delaware was sued by ACLU a few years ago. That's why AIR did that report, AIR I just showed you. That's why they did that report. Because the funding system in Delaware is broken because each of you people who are watching out there are sitting here today. The state believes you have a public responsibility. So to answer your question, no, not everything that we receive from the federal, every mandate we receive from federal government or the state does not come with a tax fund.
Can I give one quick example, Sean? Just to give you an example, so for example, guidance services, counselors for students. One, we think of guidance counselors, they allow, or school counselors help students get into college or find their next steps in life, all those type of things. But more and more, they've been responsible at every grade level all the way down for providing mental health and support services. So there have been, legislators in the state of Delaware have tried to say, okay, well, we're going to try to support funding for additional counselor units. And that's wonderful because students really benefit from having those services in our schools. But again, we pay 30%. So they give us, a portion of it, but we end up paying that 30% as well for that counselor. And there's no funding increases or plan for funding increases or any metrics at all to build additional spaces in our physical buildings across the state to house physical therapy, OT, occupational therapy, all those things, speech services that students might need. So there are things people are trying to say, well, we can give more guidance counselors or more school counselors and this and that. And that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, we still pay 30% of their salary, which continues to increase, as well as their benefits. And we also don't have a solution for where to put them so that students can have those private services. That's why it puts a stress on the physical space.
Thank you.
Okay, just another thought too. You were talking about the renters.
Yeah.
People say, well, renters don't pay, taxes, but they do. Are the landlords responsible, and do you collect the capitation tax from all of the people that live?
And let me just say, capitation tax for people who are not at home or in the audience who may not understand, it's a per head tax. So a nominal fee per person in the household.
So
We are the highest in Sussex County.
for the rate, yes, I understand. So the capitations, the actual number that we budget on, I guess, the amount that's actually taxed to the individuals is based on the information that the county has. So it's not something that the school district controls. So I don't know, and I don't go and check on different houses to see how many people
Right.
are there and how many they've reported. From my understanding, the actual capitation numbers are way off to what has been reported to the county, but I don't know how to resolve that or if the county has any intention of resolving that.
Well, I was reading online that in the 26-27 school year, which would be next year, that the state is trying to get a starting salary of $60,000 per teacher. A starting salary. To me, that is just.
That's
If
to be
we're paying 30% of that, that's $18,000. And then you add a 7% raise on top of that, paid by local funds. I mean, that's another $1,200 right there.
Well, we're nowhere close to getting to that in Laurel. So the state is trying to be more competitive with our surrounding states, with Maryland, who initiated a big increase to their teachers' pay, and also Pennsylvania, that they've been raising their beginning teachers' pay as well. So the state of Delaware is trying to keep up with that as well. But again, our funding structure is that 30% of that salary approximately comes from the local side, and the local salary scales, like we said, we're not anywhere close to that. We will not be competitive with other surrounding districts.
I think
to get to there.
the crux of your question, Mrs. Reed, is well, the state's going to pay 60,000. The state's not going to pay 60,000 the way I understand it. The state's going to look at, all right, what is the lowest amount that's paid locally in the whole state? And then from there, they're going to say, all right, say Laurel, 17,000. So they're going to add, what, 43,000. No, 43,000. Yeah, 43,000. They'll add 43,000 on top of that to get to 60. That'll be the state portion of it. It's the way I understand it. So
You have teachers that are making $43,000 less than 60,000.
I don't understand the question.
No.
The state is going to add on $43,000.
No. So the state is planning on raising their 70% to meet a 60% or $60,000 starting salary. based on where the local school districts currently have their portion of the salary. So so it's not going to exponentially increase, but we'll still be, they'll bring that up, but a rising tide levies all ships, right? So they're going to come up so that, the lowest Laurel is going to be at 60,000, but what that's going to do to the Cape Henlopen or to the Indian River or to the Woodbridge, it's going to also raise them above us even further, without them having to raise their local portion. So it just creates, the disparity stays the same. And, I'll just say this, and, just the impact of it. My job primarily in the district is to support teaching and learning. And one of my biggest roles over the last 12 years has been to help teachers learn everything they need to learn in order to help students become successful. And I can't tell you how many times over the last 10 years, it's very frustrating. We will spend lots of time and effort and money on young teachers coming into the Laurel School District. They will learn their craft and they will become extremely proficient in their classroom. And then they will leave and go to Indian River. They'll leave and go to Cape Henlopen, or they leave and go to Sussex Tech. It happens, I want to say, more than half of the time. And it's very frustrating because I know that the impact that has on the kids in the classroom. Now they've got a new educator coming in to take that place, who we can pay at the lowest end of the scale, who is not as skilled. And eventually those margins begin to add up and our students have worse outcomes. It's kind of like in baseball terms, the Pittsburgh Pirates. They get the great pitchers and then they sell them to the Yankees. That's what's happening here. And, I don't want to be the Pittsburgh Pirates. I want this place to be the Yankees. So, that's one thing to consider, but you're not wrong. I mean, yeah, it's a big problem, how the funding structure is.
It should be, and I've been preaching this for years, that it should be equalization of funds, and it should be a state set salary where each school district basically is working off the same, same set of rules.
We're not in church, but amen.
Yeah. Ms. Reed, just real quick, here's that equalization that you're talking about, the equalization revenue. This is our tax revenue, and I wasn't going to get into equalization because it's just another complex topic. But the state does give equalization money. You can see that we actually get more in equalization than we do in tax revenue. But the problem is you've got other districts who are getting some. I've served on an equalization committee. We've tried to reset this numerous times. However, there's going to be winners and losers in this thing. You're going to have to go to Cape Henlopen and tell them they're not going to get their $500,000 anymore. You're going to have to go to Sussex Tech and say, hey, we're peeling back your 168. Indian River, that's the second largest school district in the state. They're getting 1.1 million in equalization. So no one wants to touch this. This is a political powder keg. If you guys can, understand what I'm saying on that, there's going to be upset people about this. We should be getting more than our 3.1 million because we are so impoverished. So that was a great point.
You were talking about the rising cost of household bills, everything, and hopefully it will start to come down some. But with a $2 million or $2.5 million reserve, I mean, Social Security only went up 2.7%.
Yeah.
And that was offset by Medicare that went up, so it made it around 2%. The teachers state employees got a 2% COLA, cost of living, raise through Delaware this year. And then if we kick 7% in on top of that for 30% of the salary, a pretty good raise that the taxpayers are paying for from a basically poor community. I mean, this community is funded by the schools, basically, are funded by the farmers and people that work trades and stuff. We have hardly any industry at all. And I'm just, asking if you have $2 million or $2.5 million in reserve.
Yeah,
You
4.
said
We
you
actually have
had,
4.
pardon?
We actually have 4 million in reserve.
4 million in reserve. Couldn't you maybe consider bringing down instead of 3/4, 7.4, whatever that me personally, and I'm just speaking for farmers and people of my age. I'm going to be 73 in July. I get the $500 discount. I have, I can pay the increase in the property tax and all, but there are a lot of people that are not in that financial position. I just feel like you're going to be taxing people out of their homes.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to lose people, or people are peeling over left and right. I know I've lost a mess of friends these last couple years, including my husband, that, it's like you're talking, oh, we would, if we don't raise it this much now, we would have to raise it again in 2030. Well, maybe put some of it off for a few years. I just
And
think you're asking
yeah.
for
And
just
you're
me
not
on
wrong.
my place.
Yeah.
It's raising my school tax. Sussex County property taxes are very reasonable.
Mm.
I know people lump together everything as being property taxes, but on my farm, which is not a poultry farm anymore because of the last big snowstorm we had, but I pay over $2,600 in school taxes, and this is raising it 500 more dollars. So, I just think you should consider who your residents are. I think you should consider tightening your belt a little bit. We all have had to do that. I mean, inflation is just affecting everybody, and some people are just not going to be able to pay.
Yeah. You're not
People that
wrong.
have lived
And
here all their
I appreciate
lives.
everything you're sharing. Here's the bottom line for me. As a 1988 Laurel graduate here, I really want our students to have the experience that I had. And I know we're getting farther and farther away from that as our society changes, as Laurel changes, and we've got to do something different. And I don't know what it is to bring economy here. But if we wait any longer, could we wait until 2028, 29? Mathematically, yeah, we could. We could. Mathematically, yes. But what's going to happen? I'm going to forget somebody. The Amy Handys who spent 30 years here don't teach here anymore. The Allison Prices aren't going to be coming here. The Taisha Niblets, all the teachers who spent a lifetime at Laurel, they went to school here and they stayed here, though they had opportunities elsewhere. We don't have that type of homegrown loyalty as much as we used to. So what are new teachers going to do? Or even an older teacher who's got more experience now and realize they can make 15,000 more going up the road, they're not going to be here. So the reason I'm saying that is if we kick it down the road, we kick that can down the road even further, we're going to lose our great teachers. We're going to lose our great educators. We're going to lose our great secretaries who make relations with students every day. We're going to miss those people. And I know we're on the opposite ends of this thing. I know that, but that's my priority. I want to make sure that we have a great educational system for the students of Laurel, because despite all of the media attention sometimes and the social posting that is just so negative at times, I want everybody come, set up an appointment with me. Let's walk through the schools. You'll be astounded. It's not what you think it is. We got great kids. We really do. We got great teachers every day teaching them. We got great secretaries. We got great constables. We got great people here. And we're going to lose them if we don't do something sooner
I
rather
knew
than later.
you've got great teachers because I've spent the last 53 years volunteering in school, driving, being a school bus contractor. All three of my kids went through
Uh-huh.
Laurel School, but I just feel like it's an awful big ask right now when things are so in such upheaval anyhow. And when there's not in this school year, but in 2024, there's 18 employees that are making well over $100,000 in the school district. Ms. Horsey told me that none of the administrators would be getting raises
Yeah, that is
from
correct.
That's correct.
local funds.
That is correct. And when I say administrators, I want to be clear. That's our assistant principals all the way up to the superintendent. And in between, we've got principals, we've got supervisors, we've got directors, assistant superintendent, and me.
So it's basically the teachers, the
Te-
custodial staff, the
yes,
cafeteria
school nutrition,
workers.
even our substitutes. We even want to put a 7% increase on our substitute pay. And that
Yes.
includes school nutrition substitutes, teaching substitutes, custodial substitutes.
And I'll add to your earlier comment too. Why now and all that. We really should have gone out to a referendum probably 10 years ago. The reason why we haven't is because the school district did tighten their belts. And what happened was now our salary scales are not competitive at all because we shorted the teachers and we shorted the paras. We shorted our staff so that we could maintain our school system. Then we started paying the price for it, right? We don't have enough teachers. We struggled to get hires in. We're doing pretty well this year, thankfully. We've started our, school safety program through grants. We don't have that grant anymore. We won't have our SRO. Our SRO that we contract with the town of Laurel is strictly paid with that grant. It's gone. We're not going to have our SRO anymore if we don't have the funding to contract
That's a
with the town.
resource officer.
Yeah.
That's our school
Yes,
resource
yeah.
officer, yes.
And our
Um,
constables.
So basically what I'm saying is we should have gone out probably 10 years ago to keep pace. That at that point, we probably would not have asked for as much at that time if we
Well,
had gone
people
out
were
on a
still-
regular basis.
People were still reeling from the hype for
Sure.
Yes.
building new schools.
And
It
absolutely
probably never would have passed
and
then.
really any time that we go out for a capital referendum, we should go out for an operating referendum at the same time because it costs more to get those, keep those buildings up, to have additional staff, to, all of those things. It still costs more. So it would have been a little increment instead of a big ask. And if we push this any further out, it's going to be an even bigger ask next time, if we have to keep pushing it out. So we're
It co-
trying our best to, like you said, tighten our belts. We've done that all these years. We've paid the price for it now, and our students are paying the price for it. So it's time, it's time. We really don't have much choice anymore but to ask.
With that much in reserve, you
saw the
can't
chart.
use any of that reserve.
Well, we're going to use $500,000 of it every year because of the deficit. So, I mean, and the problem is, Laura, what's our payroll? A single payroll.
A single payroll, it's going to vary, or local costs. I
Yeah.
mean, it's going to vary depending on how much equalization we have left,
Right.
that type of thing. So,
Well, I guess the point I was,
$4.1 million, $4.5 million left in reserves. Again, Mrs. Reed, that's where we're going to be depleted. That's with inflation adjusted in there, and that's with the $500,000 deficit we currently have every year. Again, by the 2029-30 school year, we'll be insolvent.
that'll be when the Department of Education comes in. We're under financial review, and I don't know what the state does at that point.
So it does cost more to maintain new buildings than it did to maintain the antiquated buildings we had.
No, I wouldn't say that necessarily. It's when you have when you have a capital referendum, you're building because you have more students. You have more students, you have more staff to do that, right? And then that's
Mhm.
where our 30% comes in. We have more space, we earn more custodial units. We again have that additional 30% cost for each additional custodian staff that we earn. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, when the school district grows, the local the local portion is being, it's being hammered too. So that's why I'm saying whenever we have growth, we're going to have more expense.
Well, I just kind of feel like it's a lot to
Yeah.
ask at
It
one
is.
time.
Yeah.
And I really do. I'm so disappointed
And
that
our hope is that we don't have to come back out for another operating expense referendum for another 8 to 10 years, or, however long that we can get by with it. We will do our best. We are always going to be the best stewards of the taxpayers' money that we can. I
but if
see
you but if
I
you would
see every bill. Personally, I see
yeah,
every bill. So,
and I respect the teachers. I respect all the people that work in the Laurel school system. I don't want you to think I'm
No,
trying
you've
to
not come off that way at all. That
no,
you're
not at all.
coming off any other way. You've
yeah.
been nothing
And
but
it used to be a time not too many years ago that the superintendent and the top administrative staff had to live in the Laurel School District. It's kind of like I, I kind of feel like some people work here, but yet they go live in a
A di-
area that is, they don't have to pay as much taxes and all as we do because we have such limited
yeah.
resources, taxpayers. I mean, we have an abundance of low income housing and stuff like that. And, you know, that's nobody's fault, but, I just think you would be much better off if you brought the rate down and, went that route till things stabilized in the country because everybody's suffering right now from inflation and all that. And I'm just afraid you're going to drive people away from or limit the people that want to come in, to this area and help the tax base. But that's my opinion.
Thank you,
But
Mrs. Ray.
thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ray. Any other questions, sir? Right here.
This is not a one-year referendum. The understanding I get is continuous after you pay for the first one. So that means next year it's going to go up again another, for me, $265,000. It's going to keep on going up year after year. My tax is going to go up $265,000. I can tell you what it's going up.
Well,
My home. It's going up 2,000. Well, it's going up $264 more per year.
yeah.
If you base that over another 10 year, which I'm not going to be here,
I hope so.
I plan on moving here shortly.
Okay.
So that's my main concern is the people are getting taxed to death.
Yeah.
I know I am. I'm retired. I'm 77 years old. I don't need more property taxes, more school taxes, all that. I don't need it. I don't get enough. I got $36 in Social Security this year. They took 17 of it for Medicare. So that left me with like $17, $18 left per month.
Hmm.
That's a big raise.
And we just had assessment. Susquehanna. Let's say we're not gonna have another one.
Well, they've already said 5 more years, we're gonna have another reassessment.
Yeah.
Before you stop.
Yeah. No, man. No. Yeah.
I know what every one of you. Here.
Absolutely. Now, to be clear, no administrator is getting a raise. I'm giving you my word that that's not happening. But I do want to address your other question. it stays at 17.99. I don't understand what you mean. It's going to keep increasing each year. If we pass the referendum to go to a 7.42 increase, our tax rate would be 17.99, just under 18 cents per 100. And it would stay that way until there's another current expense referendum.
Well, the way it says on this paper, effective July 1st, 2026, and every year thereafter, on all the tax bills they use district.
What are you reading?
You guys
We
gave
were
at a school
at your
board
other
meeting.
meeting.
So that's just saying that the tax rate will increase that amount and then that stays there. So it's not 7 cents every year we're going to increase it. It's that 7 cents
Yeah.
one time
For
to this rate,
example,
and then that's where it stays.
When's it gonna stop? What year will it stop?
Every year thereafter.
Yeah, so it's effective July 1, 2026, and every year thereafter. That's the effective
Yeah.
rate. It's not that the rate increases 7 cents every year.
Yeah, I think this is
It's a one-time rate
It's a
increase,
one-time increase, and then the rate stays.
but it will stay consistently
How long
on
have you
your
lived
rate.
here, sir? How long have you lived here, sir?
I've been here 33 years.
33 years. So, I'm sorry, I'm in your way. I'll give him the microphone first. So for example, in 1985 was the last time there was a current expense increase. 1985 was the last time. So it was $1.50 per $100 of assessed value from 1985 until the reassessment. Now the reassessments happen, so it's not $1.50 anymore. It's 10.5 cents, right, Laura? Yeah. So it's going to stay if we pass it, it'll stay at 17.99 or just under 18 cents per 100, just like it stayed at $1.50 for 40 years. It'll stay that way until another current expense referendum is passed.
Sean, may I?
Yeah, sure.
You know, Sean, myself, Laura, Bubby, some of the administrators in the room, we have some principals join us tonight. Our job is to advocate for students in Laurel. That's our job. That's why we're up here. And whether, you know, what your thoughts are on compensation, at the end of the day, we're going to do our very best to advocate for kids. We don't think that the system's set up fairly for you as a senior citizen landowner in this county. I don't think that that's fair. And if it was our job to advocate for you, we'd be working just as hard to fix the system so that you would have what you need and not feel put upon. But that's not our job. Our job is to fix what we can for kids in Laurel. And the way the system exists is we have to come ask you for money. And that's terrible. That's a terrible situation. But I see kids every day who are working hard for a future in which I hope they do a better job taking care of people that are in your situation. And that's what we're working towards. So I know it's not a good deal. I know it's not a good deal, and I know you definitely don't feel like you can afford it, or you definitely can't afford it. But our job is to take care of kids. Our job is to advocate for kids. And we will not do anything less than what we think is necessary for them because we care deeply about them. You know, a lot of people, principals, things, I know some of these folks, they're very, very good people. They're very, very strong educators, administrators. If they wanted to go out and make $1 million doing some other job, they probably could. But there's a big part of their hearts that are about kids. And I know that doesn't fix your checkbook. I get it. But at the end of the day, it's our job to advocate for children, and that's what we're doing. And it's a poor system that we have to ask you for that money because it should be taken care of, but it's not. So here we are. And if it was our job to advocate for you, we would do it. And there is somebody's job somewhere, and you got to talk to them about it because it is not fair. But we want the kids to have what they deserve in this county, in this town. Yeah, so that's it.
As we said before, we realize the system's broke. It's like Mr. Giska just said, we've got to come to you. We have competing obligations here. You guys have obligations that I can't even fathom. I have some obligations that you guys can't fathom. But we do appreciate you. We appreciate your questions, and we're still going to try to do as much as we can and do right by you, even though we're probably on the other side of this thing. I get it. I do get it. Are there any other questions?
So we can all hear you on the interweb.
Will we be the highest tax rate?
No,
in
I'm glad you
Suffolk
asked that
County?
question. That's why I just remember that third is up there. We would be third in Sussex County. If you
Well,
look
we are
there,
third now.
we would be third at 1799. If it passes, we'll be third. Right now, we got Seaford's at 1999, Milford's at 1885, Woodbridge, we'd be at 1799, Woodbridge is at 1707. And again, these other school districts, not quite anywhere in that range because they are have a high rich property district. But ones that are comparable, no, we would be third highest in Sussex County at 1799. And I think if past history shows anything, we're going to give a lot of consideration before we even think about coming out again. And again, as Laura said, we imagine it's probably going to be 7 to 10 years before we have to revisit this thing. And again, that's only making sure that the average teacher gets about a $1,200 raise just to keep them here, because it costs more money to retrain than it does to retain. And we want to retain our teachers. So no, I've heard a lot about that concern that we'd be the highest. No, we would be the third highest. And we would have the second lowest tax revenue, with the exception of Del Mar. And here's the thing, Del Mar and Laurel's together doesn't equal the next one, which is Woodbridge or Seaford, as far as the tax revenue. So you got two outliers there in Del Mar and Laurel.
Well, Indian River voted down the referendum. They've got some nice schools over there, though.
They do.
Yeah, they just constructed new
Thank you.
schools.
Pardon?
The new Howard Tiana school. And they're getting ready to open another new school.
Yeah.
Or they opened one that I think this school year. But they are
1.2%.
yeah. What I would say Indian River though is struggling. They are struggling. They didn't pass their referendum and they are struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was thrilled when they didn't pass it, because they had to let a lot of temporary teachers go and they came here and when we were hiring. And but I don't want that to happen to us next year. And that's where I'm at. I mean, we probably picked up half a dozen teachers, great teachers, teachers who were masters in the classroom and got good results from kids, and they're here now. And they taught Indian River the year before, so that's.
What is, now not for like special education and different things like that, but what is the teacher to student ratio in the classroom here?
Andrea, our HR director, she should know that verbatim.
Pardon?
It depends on grade level. I can answer it. It depends on grade level. So in the high school and the middle school, we have 23 plus students in a classroom for every one teacher. As we go down, the design is to lower that somewhat. I mean, if you've ever been in a room with 35-year-olds, that would be hard, right? So we try to keep that number in 5th grade down to a more manageable 15 to 20. But even then, I mean, it should be 12. I mean, if we're talking about educating kids right, I mean, in kindergarten, there should be 12 kids with every one person in a perfect world, but there's not, because we can't afford that. 20 is a lot. 25-year-olds in a room, but we try very hard to keep those numbers down.
You ought to try it with 72 on the school bus.
Yeah.
Yo, touche. You're not wrong.
So
Are there any other-
I believe the
any-
state requirement was for K through 3 was to have 22 students for one teacher, and not to exceed that. I think we had 4 classrooms that we asked for the board to approve a waiver for that exceeded that number.
Yeah. Any other questions from our guests? No? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here with an open mind. And again, we're probably not going to leave this thing on the same side of this issue, but we do appreciate you, and we're still going to work hard for you. And hopefully we'll see you down the line at some point. Come visit us in the schools if you'd like to. I mean that. Everybody watching at home, come visit us in the schools. Come make an appointment with me. We'll go to the schools. Thank you guys ever so much. What's the announcement?
Just a quick announcement as we're exiting tonight, because we have a student event going on. There's security set up for, if you could exit through that door and out the side doors to walk to your cars, it would be